Hello everybody, I'm Nathan Wheeler. Welcome to another video of Elevated Prep. Today we're going to be covering another video made by Alt Ordo, O-R-D-O, and this is a topic that I have gotten a request for over the years. And even though this channel is new, I've been doing social media and YouTube and video making for about 14 years now, 13 years now, and this is a new channel, so it's kind of a new branch of what I've already been doing and how I've already been hopefully being a blessing to people out there. And so today we're covering this topic of off-grid living. Where is the best place in America? That's where we're going to start. Where is the best place in America to do off-grid living? And as I've said in my previous videos, there is content that's made that covers the general topic like off-grid living, but there's got to be a little bit of a variant, or there is a need for a variant when it's off-grid living for preppers. And preppers are supposed to be, or in theory, if you're a prepper, you're preparing for something that's like a catastrophe, a disaster, COVID 2.0, end of the world, volcanoes erupting, EMPs being dropped, like whatever it is. You're preparing for this kind of end of society type of idea, one way or another. And so in this particular vein of conversation, we're going to be covering prepping on an off-grid situation, and I'm going to show you some really great content and some really hard work and a lot of work that has already gone into this topic by these folks over at Alt Ordo. And so I'm highlighting them because I think they've done a great job. I'm not saying they've not done a good job. They're serving the community that is looking to off-grid in the world that we live in. I'd like to add my 2 cents and throw my hat in the ring, if you will, regarding a twist on it specifically for preppers. So I might pause it as we go. I'm going to highlight the states that they've gone over. They've rated all 50 states of the United States. They have a website, and the link will be in the description of this video. If it's not right now, I'm going to go back and do it. I'm still learning how to put this all together. And I will put the link for their website and the original video after the video is done, because I don't think it's there now. Apologize for anybody watching this live. And then you can go in and watch them and see how they rate all 50 states. And so I'm going to kind of just highlight the ones that they give an A+ rating to, and we'll talk about those. And then, like I said, I'll throw in my 2 cents. So let's go. Let's let them do all the speaking, and you can see the hard work they've done.
Today, we're going to review the best states for off-grid living, the worst states for off-grid living, and everything in between. Today, we're diving in to off-grid guides. Off-grid guides is the new project that we've been working on just to be able to share what we've learned in terms of what states and counties can give you a good off-grid experience. We built some new tools in the Acorn Land Lab software set to be able to help us review rainfall data, zoning data, temperature, political climate, topography, population density. I mean, the list goes on and on for the basic metrics that you can use to move off grid. Now, at some point, you've got to cut it because you don't want to be paralyzed by your analysis, but we've included a few dozen different metrics.
And that's the exact thing that I've been talking about, and why I feel this channel is so important, is people do want to get into their prepping and they want to get prepared, but they get analysis paralysis. And he addressed that even right there in the video. And so he has done this work, and you'll see in the list that he gave, that is an initial understanding. You can pay for a service fee, and it allows you to get into the nooks and crannies and the little more specific details of it. And I don't know, because I didn't pay yet, I don't know if he goes into the things I'm going to go into, but I just wanted to highlight the work he's done, and then I will go into a few other elements and why I think certain states are better than others.
Metrics that we like to use for evaluating off-grid locations. There are 3,143 counties across all 50 states in the USA. The county is the smallest unit of measurement we used when measuring and evaluating off-grid locations. Let's dive in and start exploring a brief overview for each of the 50 states, and then our off-grid PDF guides that we sell on the Acorn Land Labs website will give you a county by county breakdown. All right, let's get started.
Isn't that amazing? 3,000 something counties, and they do a county by county breakdown. It's not just a state by state breakdown. So this is exactly what I want to do here at Elevated Prep. This is a perfect example of what I want to do. I want to highlight the people who have already been doing this for years and done amazing work, and then send you to them You know, I want to be a promotional kind of page for the people who have already done the work and are doing a great job out there. And I just want to add my little tidbit. So let's enjoy. Hopefully you do enjoy this. I do want to let him do Alabama first. I think he does a great job with Alabama here, and then I'll skip to the A+ rating states. And notice that he said this is just a cliff note. These are just highlighted. When you get into the PDF for each state and each county, he goes heavily into things. I'm going to show you, so it's not like you're going to be oblivious as to what those things are. I'll highlight them after I do this highlighted video.
Alabama. Alabama is Georgia's cheaper, in my opinion, cooler cousin. Land is affordable. The zoning is really non-existent in most of the places. The whole climate is similar to Georgia. I think more people are going to flock to Alabama, particularly the northeast area of Alabama. That's where I would go if I was going off-grid. Go to North Alabama. I think it's underrated. Alaska. Alaska is off-grid paradise if you're a hardcore off-gridder. If you can handle the bears, if you can handle the deadly winters, and if you can handle the rugged terrain, Alaska could be so for you. Alaska's serious. It's deadly serious. If you're a beginner, don't go to Alaska.
Okay, so this was great because I love that he did Alaska afterwards, and Alaska got a B+. Right? What did Alabama have? Alabama had a B. It's very interesting to me that he put Alaska as a B+. But I mean, I think as a prepper, you have to take into account the fact that the winters are absolutely deadly. Also, as most people who are prepping, they're not experts. Most people are getting into prepping now. They're not experts. They're not people who have been doing this for years. So I wouldn't give Alaska a B+ at all personally. I'd give Alaska like a D. Unless you are already like living in Alaska, then I would definitely just stay there. You're used to it. You know the people, you know the terrain, you know the life, you know the wildlife as well. You know what to deal with. You know that mooses kill more people than bears. Like those are the type of things that new people would make a very foolish mistake thinking, oh, I'll go pet the moose because it looks sweet or nice. And in reality, they're quite deadly animals, very deadly animals. So I understand, like, according to his checklist, he gave Alaska a B+. I would never do that. I would definitely put it at the bottom of the list. However, I think according to the grading system that he has, it makes total sense. I do agree that Alaska is a great place if you can make it work, but I don't think that the beginner and most people who are getting into prepping right now would do very well at making Alaska work. It's a brutal, brutal place. Beautiful. And it is, like, nobody's going to bother you in Alaska. Like, really, nobody's going to bother you in Alaska. The population is, compared to the square mileage, there's, like, nobody around you, right? Which is a benefit for prepping for, let's just say the end of the world. Let's just use that term, right? If you're prepping for the end of the world, Alaska could be a fantastic place. But you have to be able to survive it. So let's see what he says is an A-rated place. Let me see, fast forward here. We got Arizona gets a B. You got Arkansas gets a B. Now here's something that this video is also about 5 years old. I actually want to highlight Arkansas because Arkansas just recently passed a law. So this, I don't know if this would be on his new updated version. Again, this video is about 5 years old. But Arkansas just passed a law that I think preppers should definitely be aware of. And this is the type of thing I do want to highlight. They passed a law recently that even if you were to go walk into the like federal forest, the open MLB lands and things like that, you have to have a permit. It's not just hunting and fishing anymore. If you go and you pick up a binoculars and you just point it at a bird, you're bird watching, you need a permit for that. If you just step foot into these national parks or these areas where basically it used to be that anybody could go, you know, if it was like a seasonal hunting thing, you needed a permit for that. Fishing, you needed a permit for that. But other than that, going in and like foraging and just hanging out and camping, you didn't always need a permit. If you went to a campsite, you might need to pay for the site, but then they've cleared it. They've put bathrooms up, they put showers up. So what you're paying for is the amenities, right? But before, America has always been free to go to these open federal lands that technically our taxpayer dollars not only pay for, but maintain. And Arkansas is a great example that they don't maintain it. There's trash and there's all sorts of stuff everywhere. And that's one of the reasons they're kind of saying they needed to do this permit. So they needed the extra money to clean up, but there's like already supposedly from the locals I know they're not cleaning it up. They're not, there's nobody taking care of these spots. So now they want to tax you, they want to permit you. Now, why is this important? This is super important for a prepper because I know that there are people who are looking at purchasing land that goes up against or touches these MLB lands or these government lands, federal lands, that basically you think to yourself, well, when the poop hits the fan, and if I'm butted up to, my property is butted up to one of these government lands, I'll just kind of be able to go in and I'll be able to hunt that land, or I'll be able to trap that land or fish that land. And, you know, it's the end of the world. Who cares? Wrong. If you are hunting without a permit, you can get arrested. It's not just a fine. You can get arrested. You can get put in jail. So if other states, which may have already happened, but I just know for a fact that Arkansas has, they've already started making it so that you can't even walk onto it without a permit. So what might be a prepper's idea for people who are thinking, well, if it's the end of the world and society collapse, I'll just be able to go out there and I'll be cool. Not if they start coming and asking for your papers, you won't be. And if you're thinking to yourself, yeah, but if the grid is down and the banking system is down, like how are they gonna even know? I mean, that's probably the only way that you could get away with it, unless they would still require a physical printed out paper. And they would, like the police, if they're still policing it, to make sure that it's not being abused or people aren't, you know, going in and going crazy on these public lands, they might want to still see your physical paper, and they might uphold the law as best they can just the same, even if there's no way to verify your documentation online or through the internet at the moment. So I want to highlight Arkansas while he was on there, but let's get back to the video. But that's an exact type of thing that I don't think a lot of people are thinking about, like looking into that type of idea, because it can really ruin your plan if you're thinking, oh, well, I'll have access to those lands, you know, if the poop hits the fan. So California gives a C, Colorado, he gives a B. Connecticut gets a D. Now, I've watched this video multiple times. He does a very good job, and I agree with his general. Georgia, he gets a B, which is where he lives. He lives in Georgia. Hawaii, a C. Illinois. Iowa. Kansas. Of course, Kansas is high in tornadoes. Kentucky, here we go. We got one. That's our first A. Let's take a listen to Kentucky. Oh, no, I'm about to get an advertisement, aren't I? If I do, I'll just mute it.
Trump.
Yep, I don't want to get anybody in trouble. There's an advertisement here. Tennessee, that's where I'm based. That's why this is an advertisement for that. Okay, here we go.
It's got rolling hills, creeks, hollows. There might be a few bears in Kentucky, but that makes it cool. Kentucky has got all the elements you'd be looking for that sweet spot. Forest, creeks and streams, mild weather in general. Louisiana, if you've got the...
Okay, so those are all very good reasons. Again, very short list. He has a much deeper list than that, which I will show you. Let's keep going. Louisiana gets a C+, Maine gets a B+, and it's a very particular corner of Maine. If you look at the graph, you see these dark green spots. Those are the dark green spots you see on there are the spots that he would recommend that if you go to that state, those are the counties that he would recommend that you would probably be best off getting an off-grid situation there. Missouri is the next
weather
day.
Swings that are intense, much like my state of Georgia.
Oh, let's back up. We missed a little bit
It
there.
is one of the up-and-coming best states for off-grid living. It will come as no surprise that the Ozarks are going to be where you want to go. Missouri can have weather swings that are intense, much like my state of Georgia. But in terms of affordable land, the right balance of 4 seasons, and a off-grid friendly climate, you're going to be hard-pressed to beat Missouri. Montana. If you want to do off-grid living and pretend you're in a Robert Redford movie, Montana's the place for you. The reality is, a lot of the land parcels are huge, big ranches. You're often competing with people that have got celebrity-sized budgets for land in Montana. The land is not cheap, but the scenery is stunning. If you've got the resources and the community base out there, Montana can be fantastic. Nebraska.
Okay, so again, those two back to back. I like that he did Montana right afterwards. The Missouri has a lot of the things that you would want just in a general idea: good land, good weather, you know, good resources that, you know, for our time right now. And I think it's a good spot as well. But then you get to Montana and he's like, yeah, Montana's a B+, but the price is going to be expensive. But the winters are absolutely brutal there as well. You're talking about 6 months out of the year is snow. You know, so if you're going to be farming or ranching, I guess really Montana's more of a ranch, which is livestock. So if you're going to be farming, when you consider these states that have shorter winters, you have a very small window to get the seeds in the ground, germinated and growing. And then you have to pull them quickly too, because when the cold weather comes back, depending on how long that crop takes for it to, you know, really fully bloom and fruit and all that, you could lose your crop or you could have a weak crop if the timing is not right, which means that if the winter goes too long or if the winter was too short or too wet, you know, you can't grow, you can't farm. If you're using tractors, again, if it's more rain than snow, then the rain will make it so possibly you can't actually plant your crop yet. Your tractor will get stuck in the mud. There's all these type of real life factors that you really should think about and talk about, you know, have a discussion with, do your research on, because the reality when you get there and you're living it is so much different than what it looks like on paper. This is definitely where you should start, but taking into account these other factors, short winter, 6 months of the year means you have a very short growing mistake window. And for most people who are new to homesteading, you're going to be making a lot of mistakes. If you think that putting a seed in the ground and taking care of it and you know, pruning it or whatever, and you think your plants are going to grow and it's going to work out great, that doesn't always happen. There are so many factors that go into your crops being successful. And also you have to figure your livestock. Not all livestock does good with super freezing cold weather like Montana has. So do you have a barn that's going to house all your livestock? Are you planning on selling your livestock each year and then bringing back your livestock, and then you take care of it through the season as the, you know, offspring get birthed, and then you sell the offspring or you use that as meat and then you sell all the livestock again? Or do you send it to somewhere else to be housed, and how much does that cost? This is like the reality that I think people don't really understand until they live it.
Nebraska. There's a lot more to Nebraska than corn, but barely. I'm kidding. It can be a good spot for off-grid living, but it's going to
He's not kidding.
have those frigid winters. You're gonna get tornadoes. It's very, very flat. If you already have a community there, go just to the peri-urban fringe of a big metro area and find a small, low-zoned piece of land in a county that's a little more laid back. Nevada.
There you go. To me, tornadoes, you know, I would really do the research on tornadoes and their paths that they've taken. Me personally, that's one of the things that I think preppers should do as well. Because guys, again, this is the prepper mindset, right? If you're living in the modern world and you have insurance, you have tornado insurance, and your house gets blown away by a tornado, okay, you collect your insurance. Hopefully they give you enough so that you can rebuild, buy another property, move wherever you need to go. Okay, but if the whole grid is down, the world is over, right? Everybody is either, you know, living on the outskirts or they're living heavily in the metropolitan area, and maybe those places survive or something like that. You can't just claim your insurance. How are you going to rebuild your house? Like your entire house, if the whole thing gets destroyed? Maybe you live, maybe you have a bunker, that's fine, right? But how are you going to rebuild it? You can't go to the department store. You can't go to Lowe's or Home Depot in America. That's what we got. And you can't buy all the materials. And even if you could, how expensive are those materials going to be, right? I mean, if you see what the prices of wood, what lumber did just during COVID, like 4 times its value. Pre-COVID to today, lumber is unbelievably expensive. And so these are the type of things, again, where it's like, as a general, you know, census as the world is right now, the work that this gentleman and his team have done is amazing. And again, a great place to start. But if you're going to be dealing with tornadoes, earthquakes, fires, and things like that, if there's some type of natural disaster, floods, or things like that, that could very likely take out your home, you have to think to yourself, what would I do if my home gets destroyed and there's no store and there's no insurance to claim? That's the type of mentality that I believe real prepping needs to have. So when he gives these grades, these are the things that to me are, you're talking about total deal breakers. If you can't, do you have the type of wood around you like Nebraska? He says it's corn. No, there's more to it than that. Well, sure there is on these fringes. Hopefully you can find a place with some woods, but what kind of trees are they? Do they grow straight? Can you make enough wood? Can you make enough straight lumber to rebuild a home? even if you did a log cabin, can you get enough lumber from the trees in that area to make a log cabin if that is literally the only choice you have? And are you going to dig into frozen dirt to make like an adobe home or an earth home, like an earthship home like you would in New Mexico or Arizona or something like that? There's a lot of these type of questions that you really need to ask, and that's why we're going to be covering these videos more. But let's continue on to the next A that he gives. I hope you understand the difference that I'm trying to highlight. I'm not disagreeing with what he's saying, but what I am saying is that there's these elements that totally make a difference for somebody who's looking to just off-grid while the world is still working and functioning and the stores are still there and insurance is still there. And then somebody who's designing their home and their home off-grid home for when the world isn't there and the stores aren't there. That should definitely be the main focus. Let's see what he says about New Mexico, because that's kind of another spectrum. Oh, another advertisement. Sorry about that, guys. I gotta get this. I paid for the service, but I think I paid for my other account. My bad. A little bit embarrassing here. But I know you'll be gentle with me, right? It's my third video on this channel. Okay, let's go back.
New Mexico. New Mexico is great if you're a desert dweller. If you like the desert dwelling lifestyle with your earth ships, your big water cisterns, your very mild winters, New Mexico could be for you. It can be done, and it can be done very well. It's just more of a specialty state. You've got to be down for off-grid desert living. New York. Now don't think New York.
Yeah, this is a totally different type of design, and your focus is definitely heavily water retention and preservation than other places, obviously. That's the reason I personally wouldn't choose New Mexico or Arizona or Nevada unless I found a plot that had its own well and it was a very strong well and it was proven to have like a lot of water in it. Then that would change the game for me on choosing one of those three states. And I suppose Utah as well. But Utah has some places with trees and water. Oklahoma gets a B+. Let's see what he has to say about Oklahoma, even though it's a B+.
Tornado Alley. But if you don't mind riding out a twister or two, Oklahoma can be a good option. Personally, I would stick to the eastern part of Oklahoma. Gonna be more verdant, green, more trees and forests. You'll find cheaper land out west, but I'd pay a little bit more and stick to the east. Oklahoma has got affordable land and very loose zoning. I think Oklahoma's a great option. Stick to the east side. Oregon has got stunning forests and rivers. Traditionally, Oregon and the whole Pacific Northwest area has been a prime spot for off-grid living. Recently though, there's some new pressures. Californians moving out because of high taxes, strict zoning, and the other issues there are driving up land costs in Oregon. Go to East Oregon. It's gonna be more rural, it'll be more affordable. The coast is beautiful, but it's expensive. Oregon does have more and more risks from wildfires and even, the whole heat dome problem they had in the Pacific Northwest. Oregon can be great. Just stick to the east side if you're more on a budget. Pennsylvania.
Okay, so I lived in Oregon for a little while. I think Oregon is great, but again, your growing season is going to be tight. It's another one of those states that has a little room for air because of the snow, and they can get pretty brutal winters. It's not going to be anywhere like, North Dakota, Nebraska, or Montana, or even like Illinois or Michigan, but it's just something to consider. Those winters are something to consider. And I personally feel like winter is easier to survive. This is going to be a weird statement, but I feel like winters are easier to survive than the heat. You can always dig a hole and you can kind of stay underground for a while, but how are you going to grow and how are you going to labor in America has some spots where it gets like 120 degrees, and that type of heat can kill you. Now the freezing can kill you too, but as long as you have the furs or you have the animals around to, get their furs and their pelts so that you can stay warm and you know how to do that and you have the resources and tools to do that, then you should be able to survive that, especially if you prepare while the stores are open, while you can still rent tractors and tools and things like that. If you set that good foundation in a place that's cold, I think you'll be able to survive it just fine. But you need to do that work before the grid goes off, right? Before the power and everything goes off and the society collapses. You want to do that first.
Pennsylvania's got some great corners for off-grid living.
Been to Pennsylvania. That's a good spot too, but again, when you get into it, you're probably going to look at the laws. You definitely want to check out those laws first. South Dakota. Tennessee is a B+. That's where I live. Let's see what he says about Tennessee.
option if you've already got community there. If you don't have community there, I don't know why you'd really move there unless you just really love the Black Hills, and some people do. Tennessee. Tennessee is consistently in the top 5 states for off-grid living. Low taxes, low zoning regulations, up until recently, pretty affordable land. And it's just gorgeous, especially eastern Tennessee. These days, everybody and their uncle wants to go off-grid in eastern Tennessee. The locals are not loving it because it's driving up land prices, but there's a reason it's so good for off-grid living. I would not consider western Tennessee as much because you're not going to get the same mountains, but you can still have a great time going off-grid in western and central Tennessee. But Tennessee's rolling hills, the low regulation and taxes, there's a reason it's so popular for off-grid living. So if you're wanting to go to Tennessee, do it sooner than later. Land prices are not going down. Texas. Texas is huge.
Yeah. So I think I do think that eastern Tennessee is beautiful. When it comes to views, eastern Tennessee is quite amazing, especially with the Smoky Mountains and everything. But I think the other thing that people have to consider is if you're buying a plot of land in eastern Tennessee, you are on hills. And some of those hills, they have very like deep drop-offs, like these crevices and little canyons and things like that. And you gotta think about that, because those are the type of things where the horses fall down if you have livestock, the tractor rolls over. You know, these are the type of things where, again, if you're thinking, oh, well, I'll just flatten this area, or, you know, oh, there's some flat land, but the rest of the property is rolling hills or something like that. And that sounds great for like a Hallmark movie. But when you're trying to trek up and load up your food, or trying to go down and deal with your animals, you know, these hills, I've been there. These hills, you're talking about like a 50-foot to 100-foot little drop off on your property, all here and there. It's not just like one spot. They're very like rolly. And so that to me is like, me personally, I'm not looking to be trekking up stuff, because I feel like hills are where you can get hurt and you're going to get exhausted. And you know, if you're hauling stuff up and down, and you're what are you going to use? A tractor? You're going to create a path. You know, you're going to have to, again, think of these things when you take a look at these properties. I think that the flatter it is, the better. But, you know, if you move into the super flat places that have tornadoes, again, you're weighing your pros and cons. I personally think the topography of Arkansas and central Tennessee are just right. Western Tennessee even is just right. I would also not recommend Western Tennessee, and I don't know if he just is being politically correct, but there's more problems. People-wise, there's a lot more violence, there's a lot more crime, there's a lot more like mayhem in Western Tennessee than the other parts of Tennessee. So I don't know if that's a factor he's actually referring to, but he's just not saying on the video. But I would definitely stay away from that if that's the case. If you did do Western Tennessee, I would do the northern Western Tennessee, which is their flat farmlands. That's where all the corn and stuff is growing up there. So
Huge. If you're going off-grid in Texas, I would stick to East Texas. It's going to be wooded, it's going to be hilly, there's going to be streams and creeks. The rest of Texas is either desert, oil-filled, ranch, or sinking into the Gulf. Texas is great. There's a little bit of everything for everybody. Personally, I would stick to the eastern part of Texas, away from the big cities.
I don't think Texas is a bad idea, especially like he said. I agree with the western side, or the eastern side of Texas. That is where the woods are and things like that. You do get some tornadoes, especially up there at the top of Texas, but it's not too frequent. The weather isn't super bad either. I think that side of Texas is going to be pretty good. You'd have to double check the laws of the counties, which he does go into in his PDF of these states and the counties, which is awesome. Utah. Let's listen to Utah, because I do think this is a state worth listening to as well.
Utah's great if you love open skies, red rocks, and more stars than people. Utah's a beautiful state, but water's going to be a big issue. The Great Salt Lake is slowly drying up, and there's going to be more issues in Utah down the road. Personally, I would not be moving out there for off-grid living because of the water issues, but if you're already out there, you can find a good spot in Utah. Just really lock down that water source. Vermont.
Yeah, I agree with that. But there are some parts of Utah that are not like how people think. They're just absolutely beautiful, and there's plenty of woods and things like that. Washington, Washington, I think, let's listen to what he has to say about Washington as well. Let's see.
Washington State. Western Washington is going to have all the rain you could ever want. Eastern Washington is going to be drier. There's going to be more risk of fire. Washington, the whole Pacific Northwest area, is traditionally great for off-grid living. You're just going to want to avoid the big metroplexes, kind of like the Seattle area. You'll probably have an easier time out east in terms of fewer zoning requirements and more affordable land, but Washington can be a great option. West Virginia. Western Virginia.
I think with Washington, you just have to be really aware of, again, you're living most likely on a hill. And that means that, okay, when the snow comes, how are you getting to the store? How are the roads? If you're getting a cheaper off-grid land in Washington, those roads aren't always paved. Some of them are dirt roads or just like rocked, you know, they're just like pebbles and things like that to try to keep the rain controlled. But some of those roads can be pretty brutal. And you're talking about driving a trailer or a truck or, you know, some type of vehicle that's going to be on these cliffs of these big mountains. You're talking mountains when you get to Washington. So that's another thing to factor in. And what's the soil type like? Are you growing? How much sun are you getting? Are you on the front side of the mountain, the back side of the mountain? Is your mountain facing, say, north or south? You know, these are the type of things that you really want to take a look at. And obviously being that far north, you're going to want to make sure that your mountain, the side of the mountain you're on, if you can, is on the south side so you can get that sun for growing stuff. West Virginia, I've been to West Virginia.
Virginia is going to have very cheap land, gorgeous scenery, but it's a very impoverished state. The small towns have got a lot of intergenerational just dependency on the government dole because industry dried up.
So again, great note there. He has, this is why I like this guy. He's definitely done his homework. And I feel like he beats around the bush a little bit. West Virginia is definitely a spot, like you said, there's poverty there. I think also you're going to have, you know, the people who know each other, and you'll clearly be an outsider. Unless you know somebody there, unless you get there early enough to really establish relationships and build those kind of relationships with folks, I think that you could have that type of situation where, you know, if they're going to steal from somebody, it's going to be you because they don't know you. There's no emotional connection to you. But I think West Virginia otherwise is a good state. Again, the hills there, there's some West Virginia actually has some really interesting topography as well, where they have like flat valleys and then hills. And then like they can have plateaus. And what I mean by is there's plenty of space to do a homestead at the bottom of these, right? But then you want to also take a look at what's the rain flow, what's the water flow, what's the flooding looking like, how much sun is coming through, depending on how tight the valley is. Is the sun coming through enough for you to get enough sunlight? Those are the type of things. Wisconsin gets a B. I feel like Wisconsin would be good. Wyoming, let's take a look at what he says about Wyoming. Oh, I got this.
It's cold, but you've got some. Wisconsin's a great location farther up north. It's got the lakes, it's got the forests, got more affordable land than many areas. You're just going to spend a lot of time chopping firewood and avoiding cheese-related puns. Wyoming. Wyoming is rugged, it is rough and ready, and it is really great for off-grid living. Wyoming is going to put your home design to the test. Make sure you build a wind-proof home. It's cold, but you've got that rugged, independent spirit alive and well in Wyoming. Washington, D.C.
Yeah, notice he had only one green corner and the rest of it was whited out. It's not exactly a, I don't know if I would say that that's a great location for that. Also, Wyoming is very close to Yellowstone. Montana and Idaho, you know, basically all the places that are also there, very close to Yellowstone. If Yellowstone does go, if that's one of the things, because there's a lot of preppers out there, especially in America, who feel like Yellowstone is going to explode and that's going to just send ash all over America and it's going to cause like basically a winter, you know, and have all sorts of type of debris and chemicals from the volcanoes that are going to cause problems for living in America. So the closer you are to it, obviously, the more that's going to impact you. And if it goes, it could be one of the biggest volcanoes to erupt technically ever, because it's way overdue. And if you guys don't know, you can Google this information too. Like the streets are already melting. They're already melting the roads. The heat of the underground volcano activity there's literally parts of Yellowstone where the road is like liquefied. That's how hot the ground is getting. So I personally would love to be up there in like the Montana area visually wise, even if you didn't care about the winters, like if you had enough food to stockpile. But that Yellowstone could literally go at any moment. So I don't know if that's a great spot.
You're gonna have a hard time finding a place to go off grid between the politicians and the monuments.
DC is the only F. DC is the only F on the list. I think that's kind of funny. All right, let's see what his end video here says.
In to offend anybody. All 50 of these states, even DC, have got unique things that make them wonderful places to live. So we've got 50 guides for each individual state with all their respective counties. There's links below. We've got a guide that has the 200 best counties in the United States for off-grid living based on our off-grid algorithm and the metrics we evaluate. Then we've got a guide with the 200 worst counties for off-grid living. We've got a guide that just has your 50 state overviews, and then we've got a guide that's got all 3,143 counties in just short blurbs, like a high-level little blurb snippet. So we've got different formats that you could pull based on what your needs are and what you're wanting to learn. And then we've got a mega pack that's got the in-depth state and then all the counties within each state PDF guide. But we have all 50 states plus DC in the mega pack. Any proceeds we earn from selling these guides that we've compiled, we use to help further the Acorn Land Lab experiments, to produce more content, to teach more people about simple living, off-grid living, permaculture, sustainable gardening systems, and just building a more independent, resilient life that gives you more freedom and is easier on the world around us. Thanks so much for sticking with us. We hope you enjoyed it.
Great stuff. Here's what the website looks like for their team. So the Acorn Off-Grid book. Click on the home here and find your place off-grid guide, 50 states guide. They've done so much work, and I mean, they really have a lot of things here that you can consider and look at. So I do recommend it. Is this it? Yeah. So if you pay $19, you get all 67 counties of, like, let's say Alabama. If, like, Alabama is where you're leaning to, but you want to get more details, they got population density, rainfall levels, terrain and topography, land cost, zoning freedom. Basically, are you allowed to build what you want to build? Is it hard to get the permits to it? Are they going to basically screw you over financially or screw you over with fees and headaches and this and that? Estimated tax burdens, great. Population levels, great. Political leanings, super important in my opinion, because one, wherever you are on that spectrum, you might want to be around other like-minded folks, but also specifically in America, the right seems to be more gun-friendly. So, specifically if you think that having guns and being able to protect yourself is important, then you're definitely going to want to look at those political leanings, as he calls it. Soil types, obviously important. That will matter when you want to build a septic tank. That will matter if you want to build wells, not just for growing. There's other factors you want to consider and you want to get into considering when you're taking a look at the soil types of the location. Minimum and maximum typical temperatures. I'm going to get into that for a second too, because I think that's going to change dramatically as time goes on. Natural hazards, I think you definitely want to look at those. County history, demographics on the Wikipedia, bird's eye view, land for sale and land watch, and Zillow for homes, camping data in Campendum, I guess that's an app, camping locations and HipCamp, I guess that's an area nearby, organic farming opportunities, and WWOOF, RV stays and the harvest. So the RV stays also will play a factor. If you are doing an off-grid homestead and you're building your home from scratch, like there's no buildings on that property, you're going to want to obviously take into account, are you allowed to have an RV on your property? Do you have to have a permit for that? Do you have to build a foundation for it? A slab of cement has to be down, plumbing has to be down, electricity has to be connected. These are definitely the type of things you're going to want to consider, other than just the general building of your home, right? Or if there's a pre-built home, you want to still look at those type of things that you might want to add on. And so again, as you can see, you understand why I highlighted them. Here are some things that I personally think are important to consider. Let's just say, again, the eruption of a volcano anywhere in the world. Let's just go with Yosemite or Yellowstone. Excuse me, I keep saying Yosemite. Yellowstone, because that's here in America, and this particular video is about the 50 states of America. If Yellowstone blows and it puts all that smoke into the air, and it can cause an absolute weather change. Most likely it would cause a winter. It would cause basically the cloud would not let the sun come through, so there'd be more winter. But let's go the other way. let's say you're a Bible believer. Let's say you believe in the Bible, and the Bible tells us that the world is going to heat up and that the water is going to become, blood red. That could be that algae that turns the water red. And that the algae only exists when the water is very warm. Let's just say that that's what your idea or that's what you're prepping for. If that is what you're prepping for, you might want to consider that if the entire world heats up, and that's what the Bible says, that it probably will melt the ice caps, north and polar. And if the north and polar ice caps do melt, well, what would that mean for like the water levels? Are you going to be in Florida? I don't know if Florida will even be around. Let's take a look. So these are some topography maps that show if the ice were to melt in the north and south poles. You're looking at all the blue area here. Let's see if I can zoom in for you. There we go. All this blue area means it's underwater. So Florida right here is completely underwater. I mean, part of these states, Louisiana is pretty much underwater. I'm in Tennessee, and I factored in this particular scenario personally for moving to Tennessee, because the water level will, if anything, it will come up to the base of Tennessee. I'm in the central area near Nashville. If you're on the East Coast and the temperature of the earth does rise and the water does rise, it can rise up to, what does this say? I think it tells us. This particular page, this link, you can just Google this, you'll find this, 216 feet. It will rise 216 feet if the polar caps melt. So that's pretty brutal. That's pretty high. And that will change things significantly. So again, it's one thing to be planning for an off-grid situation, but if you're not planning for, like, again, the end of the world or some type of catastrophe and how that catastrophe will affect things, right? So it's already, if it's a volcano and everything gets cold, are you in a part of the country where the wind will blow the smoke away from you? Are you downwind, or is it going to blow it away fast enough that you'll recover fast enough that your stockpile of foods, your MRIs, your dry foods, your freeze-dried foods, that you'll be able to survive until the wind blows and the sunlight comes back? Can you survive that? If it's going to be the melting of the ice caps and the water rises level, what's your temperature going to be? What's the humidity going to be like? What kind of animals or insects are going to thrive and not thrive? That brings me to my next personal deal breaker, which is the bugs, specifically ticks. Ticks and mosquitoes, to me, are something to definitely consider. And throughout America, there is a huge boom right now for ticks. And, it's not just Lyme disease that's a big concern. It's also the alpha gout, which allows it, once you have it, you can't eat red meat. There is supposedly a cure for it, which is this acupuncture in the ear, and supposedly it's curing like 90% of all cases. But you don't know what's going to come out next. There are people who believe that the tick situation is also man-made, man-affected, and that it just coincidentally ties in with certain vaccines that they're pushing, and they started prepping the vaccines before the boom of these ticks. And there's never been a tick situation like this in America, ever. And there's all sorts of new problems. It's not just Lyme disease. So to me, ticks are a huge issue. And you have to think to yourself, even if you have a home, even if you have a place set up and it's your farm, it's your property, but what if some bad people come on your property and they want to take it from you? Or with the government's coming in, they're arresting everybody who won't take, some type of chip in their hand or mark on their forehead or something like that, and you're not able to pay your taxes, and they're like, hey, the grid is still up, or we've managed to keep things running, and you need to take this form of being tracked and form of tracking your finances, and so we can control your banking and your ability. We want to be able to turn off your money if you don't play ball with us. How are you going to stay on your property? So you might have to flee. You might have to run into the forest or the wilderness or, the federal lands and try not to get caught. So now you're running, you become nomadic. And that's where the bushcraft side of prepping is important, I believe, for everybody. No matter where you are in the world, no matter what country or government system you have, I do think that the bushcraft situation and education is something that's going to be really important for everybody to learn in case you do have to flee, even if it's for a moment until you can go back to your property, or it might be permanent. And so that to me is something that everybody should consider too if you're going to be doing an off-grid situation, thinking to yourself, okay, I've established this homestead, but what if I have to leave this homestead? What is that life going to look like? And if you're literally sleeping on forest floor and you're literally like cutting down branches and laying down branches on the ground and building some type of, makeshift little hut, you're going to have bugs all over you. You're going to have ticks all over you. If you do watch guys who go out into the forest, modern videos made in like the last 4 months here in America, you're going to see they're addressing the tick issue. They're going to show you while they're sitting there making a video, a tick crawls on them. Some of them that I watched have actually gotten the alpha gout disease where they can't eat red meat anymore. So it is affecting people. There's a lot of people. In fact, you should also do a search how many people are being bit by ticks and how many people in the area are affected by those diseases. Tennessee actually has quite a high, it's 1 in 5 people have a tick-borne disease in Tennessee. That's really high. But there's a way to counter it, right? So one of the things that I have, you can see this says last purchase July 14th, 2022. When I first moved here to Tennessee and I got on some land, this was the first thing I bought. No joke. That's what that date means. I bought this. It is a full-on mosquito repellent net and insect net. And it is so small. The holes are so small that even like a baby tick isn't getting through it. Chiggers might get through it, maybe, but a baby tick isn't going to get through this thing. Do you look ridiculous wearing it? Absolutely. Does it break pretty easy? Absolutely. Like, especially if you're working around tractors or something like that, you can tear these things. But it's so small, you can crumple up the whole thing and it fits in the palm of your hand. It's such a small, and it's light. You can't even feel it when it's on your body. The only drawback to it that I see is it rips easy, but duct tape can fix it. If you put duct tape on the inside and the outside and the duct tape sticks together through the rip or the cut, it holds and you're good to go. And so a little bit of duct tape fixes these things super easy. The other bad part is it does cause you to feel a little bit hotter, even though it is mesh. The wind doesn't flow through it as cleanly or as purely as if you're not wearing it at all. So if you're going to be in a place that you might have to run, you and your family might have to run, how many bottles of, tick spray or mosquito spray or bug spray can you carry with you? How long will those last? Are there plants in nature that you can make your own kind of tincture or your own oils, or you can just spread it and, put it on your body? Yeah. How often do you have to do that though? I know that there's companies out there selling these, essence, right? These oil essence or these, tinctures out there that you just put it on yourself. These natural options, you have to frequently place it on you. You have to frequently spray it on you, like every 30 minutes to every hour. And so do you really, really want to be spraying that? And how long will that supply last you? Are you making batches of this every single day? How long does it need to, sit in the oil, the herbs or the spices or the plant that you're going to be using as a repellent, whether it's DEET or something else? How are you going to be making this out in the wilderness on the run? Buying something like this, again, you might look a little ridiculous, but it works. And you don't have to worry so much. At the end of the day, you still want to check yourself, or every few hours you want to check yourself to make sure you haven't been bitten. But I don't mind looking ridiculous as long as I'm not having to spray myself. I hate putting oils and stuff on me. I hate it. So I'd much rather have this. I also have different type of clothing that I bought that I would wear underneath that even. That is another layer of protection, and it protects me from the sun. This won't protect you from the sun at all, obviously, but it will protect you from those bugs. And so if you are in those places and you have this type of defense, it can change things for you. So here are the states that I think are the best for end of the world off-grid prepping homesteads. First for me is going to be Tennessee and Georgia, Kentucky. Those for me are great spots. And if you're in, Kentucky, I would be towards the northern side. If you're rich and you have the ability to, there's parts of California where the government just doesn't even care you're there. I mean, there's a whole place where there's homeless people that live on this slab. It's called Slab County or Slab City, and it's lawless. There's no police. There's nobody there. It's just a bunch of like hippies, and not making fun of hippies, but it's literally just a bunch of people who, head out there and they just claim, like they just go, this is my slab. And everybody pretty much accepts you until you start causing problems. But it's basically policed by each other. You know, it's just, it's a social experiment for sure. I've been there. It's quite interesting. I wouldn't live there though. I personally wouldn't live there. And that place is a desert. It gets hot, and the only real water source is a salted lake. It's not good. Like a deadly salted lake. It's not a good spot to be. But Google it, Slab City. So there are parts of California where, even though California has really horrific laws and the people are corrupt as all can be out there, there's places where you can escape and truly nobody wants to even bother with you. So that's a bonus. And I only say California for the weather-wise because the weather's perfect. The bugs are not as much, you know. I don't even know if I ever got stung by a mosquito. That's not true. If I was living in LA City, I never got bit by a mosquito ever. Once I moved over into what's called the Valley, which is this little mountain like on the backside of Malibu, then I got bit by mosquitoes all the time. They ate me up. But that right there would solve the problem, that net. So Kentucky, Georgia, Tennessee, Missouri, and then there's a little nook up in Michigan. There's a place that's called the Upper Peninsula in Michigan. And that place has a low population, but it has a very high tick population as well, or issue as well. And so if you're wearing that, you just have to wear that all the time. The winters can be a little brutal as well, but the soil there is really good, the forest is really good, and you're on the border of Canada, and you have a massive amount of fresh water. And there's a lot of rain, and the people are good, and it's very homestead friendly. And it's not like the rest of the state of Michigan. And people who live in Michigan will tell you that Upper Peninsula area, it's almost like its own state. And it's not really a place that I ever hear people mention when they're talking about homesteads or off-grid living. So it's kind of like a secret. I don't know how expensive it is to buy something there, but I think it's one of the prime spots along with Tennessee. The other place that I was looking at that I think meets a lot of the criteria is Idaho. Now, Idaho is up there in Montana, but the weather is a bit more tame, and it has really good laws, and it has really good soil, and the community is very homestead friendly. But one of the things to consider too is this thing going around. Let me show you real quick. I'm sure it's not like a brand new thing, but it's called chronic waste disease, CWD. So if, again, you're going out to the forest, you're going to go live off of the land because you have to run away, or you have to, get out of town, and you have to basically become nomadic and live the bushcraft life, right? Go out there and live by cutting down some branches and trees and try to survive in the wild. One of the things that they're warning you about is there is a rise of this chronic wasting disease. And it's these, basically, as it says right here, there's these prions. They're like worms, and they're brain worms is exactly what they are. And they cause the deer to go crazy. And you can Google all about this. And this is spreading all across America. There's a few counties here in Tennessee that have it. And supposedly you can't get it, but at the same time, there's laws where even if when you hunt a deer and you get the deer, you have to have the deer checked for these brain worms. And if it has the brain worms, you're not allowed to eat it. They say you're not going to get it, but they don't know, when will it change? When will it become contagious to a human? And I don't know, eating an animal with brain worms doesn't sound too pleasing to me either. So there's all these things that, like, the idea of living off the land, or, I'll just go and I'll eat deer or squirrel or blah, blah, blah. There's so many things that are realities that just aren't really talked about. I never hear anybody who's prepping or doing the bushcraft lessons or teaching you how to chop down a tree and make a angle, little hut out of branches and things like that. I never hear them talking about, by the way, if you hunt a deer, you think you're going to skin a deer and live off of it, be aware of CWD. Or, hey, the tick population is so extreme that you are going to get like 50 ticks on you this year. Just from being out in the wilderness for like 1 hour, you'll get 50 ticks on you, no exaggeration. And you can just watch these videos. So these type of things can be very discouraging if you let them be, right? But there are ways to notice it. There are ways to see it. There are ways to look for it when you're hunting or trapping or scavenging for survival out in the wilderness. But when you pick your location, the thing that this gentleman, in his grid, at least as far as what I can see, isn't covering. Again, this is 5 years old. He might have updated it. But in the videos, he's not talking about ticks and tick-borne diseases and mosquitoes and mosquito-borne diseases and wildlife with brain worms and things like that you don't want to eat, or fish with worms. Like, this isn't like a conversation that I ever see brought up in these videos. And if you truly are prepping for everything going to crap, this will be your only choice of survival. These will be your only resources. So you should be educated on them, and you should find the places where these are the least prevalent, right? I think. And you should weigh your pros and cons. Like, if you go to Idaho, you have less ticks. You don't have so much tick issue because of the winters. The one thing good about the snow is it kills a lot of the insects, or it reduces the insects. Hard winters means less insects in the summertime. Less snow and less freezes means more bugs. So these are all the type of things that you got to consider. And so I do recommend people to go check out the Alt Ordo's page. Check a look. I'll put it in the description of this video, like I said, as soon as I'm done making it. And I hope that it will bless you guys to have this kind of conversation begin. And I would take a look at what type of things bother you. Like, do you have absolute horrid fear of snakes and a horrid fear of like scorpions? What type of things would be like a deal breaker for you that goes beyond the normal rainfall and soil quality and gun laws and taxes? Like, those kind of things I feel are very surface level. But when you get down to the nitty gritty, like, one of the other reasons I chose Tennessee is it rains here like clockwork. Like, every 9 days it rains in Tennessee. It's the weirdest thing. I've never even seen a house or a property here with a sprinkler system. Not one. And a guy from California, everybody has a sprinkler system on their yard. So to be in a state where it rains so frequently and so much that you don't even need to ever water your yard is weird. It's crazy. But that's one of the other reasons I chose it. If I can't dig a well, or if the well water becomes contaminated, the best chance I have is rainwater. And a lot of people think too that they can just catch rainwater or open their mouth and drink rainwater. That's not true. The rain has some stuff in it too. Capture some rain, get a little microscope, a kid's microscope or something like that, and take a look at what's in raindrops. It'll trip you out. It's you want to filter even your rainwater. Even if you catch it in a clean container, you still want to boil that stuff. There are actual bugs, and there can be chemicals and things like that in the rain, especially if there's that plane flying over air seeding stuff that they do. You can get some bad stuff in there. So having the right filtration. These are all the type of things that I think preppers should be talking about beyond the surface level normal. If you're going to be off grid today, these guides and these videos are great. But when you can't go to the store, when you can't get feed for your animals, when you can't drill another hole or a well, if you have to escape, how do you combat them? And there are ways to combat it, even if it looks silly, like these little fishnet type of outfits. You know what I mean? And have a backup. They're so small. I'd have a backup, and just be ready to put some duct tape on if it gets holes. I might bring mine out one day just so you guys can see it. But I hope this video is a blessing to you. I hope it helps, and I hope it gets your mind thinking about other things than the stereotypical. Because right now, a lot of these videos, if in my opinion, not all of these videos, even the prepper channels, they still address these conversations as though the stores are going to be open, or they're only addressing it as the stores are open. So this is the talk we're having today. But when the stores close, the internet's going to be off, right? Or the topic will be outlawed. So I am of the persuasion that the conversation needs to be had as though the doors are already closed to all the stores and all the meds and all the vets. There's nobody coming out to help you, right? So how do you do it yourself? How do you act like a vet? How do you recognize? How do you know how to treat the animal or call the animal or whatever you need to do without the vet? Where are the levels to where you invest the energy, the medicine, and the resources you have to try to save that animal? How valuable is that animal to your life, to your lifestyle or your livelihood and your ability to survive? Do you do everything you can, because without that animal, life is going to become probably pretty close to darn near impossible to survive, then you got to do what you got to do, which means you need to have that type of prep and that type of medicine or medical need to not just for the humans but for the animal as well, and the know-how to perform those medical procedures or medicines and issue them and so forth. So this can be quite overwhelming. Again, analysis paralysis, right? If you're going to be looking at a place to do your homestead, what is best for you? One of the things that I'm glad I stopped on his video when he said, if you already know people, if you're already established there, stay there. And that's good for certain states. Watch the whole video. Again, I'll put the link in here. Watch the whole video and see which states he talks that way about. And then do your own research further into those things that are going to be concerning you. But I've never heard anybody on these lists mention, the chronic waste disease, the ticks, the mosquitoes, the bugs, the rodents. How does that affect your, how do you deal with that? Flies even, these are all the things that will greatly, horrifically affect your life when the grid goes down. So you need to know how to deal with them when you cannot go to the store. Let's continue this conversation. Let's continue to check out other videos of what other people have found and things that they have realized help them to deal with the modern issues or ways that they counter without going to the store, and we'll continue this and hope that this is a great beginning for everybody to really start thinking that very slight but very important variant. A conversation while the stores are open and the world is running, as opposed to the conversation when the stores are closed and the world's not running. Hope that makes sense. Talk to you guys soon. Thank you for watching, and I hope that together we can elevate this entire community.